Happy May 4th! Happy May the 4th be with you, everyone. Yes, here we are, hobbyists. May the 4th, the day we all nerds love for Star Wars. However you celebrate May the 4th, I hope you will celebrate it greatly. Whether it's watching the movies, reading the books, or in some cases, even playing the miniature games or the TCG games. Whatever you do, I hope you celebrate it today. But yes, Star Wars is very iconic, whether it's being parodied by other shows or being watched 100 times over on TNT or TBS or anything like that on TV. Sure, Disney hasn't had a great rap with Star Wars, but we do still have the original trilogy and of course the prequel trilogy, which of course I really love, Attack of the Clones. But I also love the miniatures hobby, and there is no shortage of miniature hobby games in the Star Wars universe. Whether or not you want the dogfight style of Star Wars X-Wing, the massive ship-to-ship battles in Star Wars Armada, the ground forces and paintable models from Star Wars Legion, and of course the Snowspeeder up here, and of course the soon-to-be released Star Wars Shatterpoint, there is no shortage of miniature games. But I am a hobby channel after all, and of course I haven't yet released anything Star Wars related for Battle Report, but I have always wanted to paint up Star Wars Legion models. I have a few clone soldiers painted up for test models of a color scheme, but I want to do a fun one for May the 4th here, and that's why I have the Snowspeeder. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, is probably one of my favorite episodes. I have a popcorn bucket of the 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻, and the Snowspeeder and the 𝐴𝐷𝐴𝐷 are some of my favorite set pieces from that movie. I still want to get the $1,000 Black Series 𝐒𝐴𝐷𝐴𝐷. But do let me know actually down in the comments if you pronounce it 𝐴𝐷-AT, or do you pronounce it at. So basically at and then at. Let me know. But anyways, there's no 𝐴𝐷𝐴𝐷 model in Star Wars Legion as of yet, but there is a Snowspeeder model, or as it is actually called, the T-47 Airspeeder. So we're going to paint up a T-47 Airspeeder. So let's check out the model and get onto the paint scheme. So here is the fully assembled T-47 Airspeeder. You can see it's a very nicely sculpted plastic model as we take a look over the entire model. But anyways, we can see the base here. We have the stem. We're going to put the stem in here just so I can show you all what it looks like when we have completed full assembly of the model, what it'll look like on the base. We are going to leave this stem separate to glue onto the base after we finished priming it. As I move my mat around as well. But anyways, for the assembly, I decided to close one flap and leave one flap open. And to stay a little fluffy, I've decided to go with the harpoon. Now, before, of course, we can begin painting the model, we need to prime it. I'll be using Army Painter Black to prime the model. I really do enjoy Army Painter primers. Now I've fully primed the models, and off camera I did airbrush the Airspeeder as well as gluing the stem onto the base for when we go do basing the model. But anyways, I decided to use a yellow color here, airbrush off camera because I didn't know how to do it. But anyways, that color is Barren Yellow. Apologies for the unfocusing. So we've seen the model, we primed the model and the base, and we've airbrushed the model with a yellow. So you're wondering, why didn't I go to the traditional white color scheme with the red striping? Well, that's all great, but I think in this hobby as well, being able to build in the Star Wars universe with your own headcanons of models and armies and stuff like that is very nice, and especially since my headcanon is that these are the Desert Dragons. They're an Outer Rim rebel group who spy on the Empire in the Outer Rim. They prefer to live on desert and work on desert worlds, much like Tatooine. So they paint up their speeders in the desert scheme. So of course, as you know, I did just say dragon, so there will be, of course, a little red in there as well to stay with the iconic Airspeeder. But anyways, that's the reason why. So It's going to be a very cool color scheme, and I think you want to stick around for the entire paint scheme. So the first thing we're going to deal with is the base. So again, we've glued the peg down so we can hide the peg down with the basing material. We will be using Armageddon dust for the base. Now, when using Armageddon dust, what you want to do, or any technical paint from Citadel, you just want to scoop it out of the pot, place it onto the base, and then we're just going to push that around just to get it everywhere we want to go. Of course, I'm using the Citadel tool here to move the paint around. Again, we are going to get up onto that base so we can up onto the stem so that we can of course cover up the clear part of it, just so it looks a little more blended in with the black base. So anyways, we're just going to continue to move that around, making up some jagged formations for when we move into the dry brushing step of the base. So anyways, we're just going to continue moving that around, get a lot more the technical paint from the pot so that we can of course cover the entire base. And let me tell you, it's quite a lot of technical paint that I used here for this base. So we've completed our basing. I've left it overnight to fully dry and cure. So now we're going to get going on the dry brushing step of it. To do that, we're going to be using Citadel Tyrant Skull. So when dry brushing, you're just going to get a little bit on a brush it off onto a paper towel, and then we're just going to lightly brush over it. So anyways, we've completed that. I've gone back and did some darker highlighting of the dry brushing, starting off of course with a light and then going into a darker areas if I wanted them to show a little more. Now we're going to deal with the rim of the base here. And to do that, we're going to use Citadel Steel Legion Drab. So anyways, we got some paint here. As I just show you exactly how I paint down the rim of the base, we're just going to paint that in Steel Legion Drab in 2 thin coats. So we've completed our Steel Legion Drab as I show you here. Just the look of it, again, that is 2 thin coats of Steel Legion Drab. Really nice coverage there, covers the base and all of that. Really, really love it. And that, of course, finishes up the base. So now we are going to move on to the speeder. So here is the speeder. Of course, once again, the Baron Yellow base coat. After priming it, of course, black using the Army Painter primer. We're going to start with our first base coat of red. I like to go my base coats, washes, and then highlights. So we're going to use pure red on parts of the model. So the parts of the model are going to be the top sections between the cross areas between the weapons on the Airspeeder and then the front part of it. So again, we're going to put that dropper bottle into a wet palette, and then I will thin that paint down with some water. Make sure you thin it down. You never want to use straight from the pot or the dropper bottle. I like to use also a wet palette to try to keep the paint moist throughout the painting process. So anyways, once more, I'm just showing you all where I'm going to be applying this red paint. Again, the top dorsal areas between next to the main weapons of the speeder, as well as the front part of it. So anyways, I'm just going to begin by lightly coating that in some red. Again, we're going to use 2 thin coats. We don't want to clog any details here with the red paint. Want to make sure that, again, clogging details is not a good thing for any miniature painter. Do make sure once again that your paint is thinned down as you paint it onto the model. So we've completed the red color on the Airspeeder. I really do enjoy the color scheme that I was able to bring out from the speeder itself, painting of course everything in 2 thin coats, as well making sure not to clog any of the details. Now we are going to move on to the next color scheme, using Necromancer Cloak to paint anything that I want to be a steel color. So the steel color that we will be picking out is the 2 turbines in the back, the main engine rotary on the back, as well as the inside of where the flap is, and then the two little braces in the back area as well. We will be leaving the harpoon gun and the front of the guns for a different color. There we are. The Necromancer cloak has been completed. As you can see, we did, of course, the two turbines, the two little braces, and then the back full panel as well as inside of where the flap is open. Though I will say that I would like to have not glued the flap on, because I think it gave a little harder time to paint the inside of that area. Highly recommend to anyone building this model to kind of just leave that flap off. Just stick the part that will hold the flap up and then paint the inside of that with the Necromancer cloak. It gives it a easier time to paint that. So anyways, now we're going to be dealing with the canopy, where the pilots, of course, would sit. For the paints, we will be using Spaceship Exterior for the canopy. As we paint here, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to use a small brush here. Going to paint up the lines, just going to block in. I'm not too afraid of coloring in the windows because we'll just be using another color there. So if we get it in those windows, it's not going to be too bad for us, because again, that's going to be a different color altogether. So we're just going to get the white onto the model. So we finished the canopy here. It's a really nice coat. Again, two thin coats, got a well enough coverage to hide the darker yellow and give us a good coverage. Again, I wasn't too afraid about hitting the windows. Now we're going to move on to the windows using deep blue for them. But we are also going to paint the weapons, the harpoon gun and the front of the T-47 Airspeeder's weapons. And we are going to be using matte black for that color. We've finished the matte black and the deep blue. A nice rich blue color for the windows gives a very good definition to the windows against the white. And then, of course, like I said, the weapons on the front of the Airspeeder and the harpoon gun have been given a nice black coating. I prefer the black coating over that than the Necromancer cloak, because Star Wars guns are typically a black color rather than the Necromancer's more grayish color. Now we're going to be moving on to the wash step of the miniature painting process, and I'm going to do an overall wash with dark tone ink. I will not be washing the canopy part of the model. I just want to leave that still a white, but we're also going to be using a little bit of quick shade mixing medium to tone down the dark tone, just so it's not as strong a dark tone to the model. Now, when I use these paints, I do like to use a 50-50 split, so 50% dark tone ink and then 50% quick shade mixing medium. So anyways, I'm going to mix that up onto a palette and then apply to the entire model again once more, ignoring the canopy. So here is the model fully washed. It really gives a definition of all the little interior lines, gives some definition to the area, darkened up the windows a little bit more, gave some definition to the black, darkened up the Necromancer cloak. And of course, we did do this to the bottom just to give some definition to the bottom. Now then, we're going to start the highlighting process, and we're going to start with the yellow and desert yellow over the darkened barren yellow to just highlight it. So we're going to be using a edge highlighting method for the edges of the speeder, but we are also going to define all the little blocking areas of the metal parts on it, just to give more definition to the Airspeeder. We want to make sure when our opponent looks at this model, we are dragging his eyes to every part of the model itself. So here I'm going to show you the edge highlighting method. We're just going to take the edge of a brush, gently just run it down the edge of a model to highlight the edge of it. I like to use, you can use thin or chunky line depending on how you want the edge highlight to be for you. So I'm just going to do that again just for you all. Again, I thin it down that paint, just a little look there of the edge highlighting. But anyways, we're going to do that across the entire model to give it some definition. So anyways, we've finished edge highlighting the entire model. As you can see, it gave some real good definition. Even all the armor panels are now fully highlighted, so they give way more definition. We've highlighted some parts of the gun to get some definition. Again, bring our opponent's eyes to those parts of the model. Now, what we didn't do is we did not highlight the bottom. That is not going to be visible to our opponent, but we did highlight the bottom of the guns because those are more or less visible to our opponent at any point in time when playing in the game. So again, we want to make sure we bring our opponent's eyes to that detail of the model. So anyways, for the red, we're going to highlight in Citadel Fire Dragon Bright, which is a nice orange color, which will make the red pop. As you can see, it did in fact make the red pop out. Again, we brought in the armor paneling, edge highlighting everything. We did the front as well. So again, that Dragon Bright really bringing out the red parts of the model. So anyways, now we're going to deal with the Necromancer Cloak parts of the model, and to do that, we will be using Gunmetal. Again, Gunmetal just bringing out the Necromancer's Cloak's metallic parts. Again, I really love this combination of Necromancer Cloak and, of course, Gunmetal. It just gives a more metallic, realistic metallic look. I did just highlight the inside of the area, the parts that are the most visible to our opponent, just to give some definition to those parts. Now we're going to deal with the canopy here, and to do that, we will be using matte white. So the matte white, after that, just giving some definition, nothing majorly here, just going over the edges and corners, just highlighting parts of the canopy that, again, drag our opponent's eyes to that. So that is really nice. So that only leaves us with the blue and the black colors. So anyways, for the black, I'm going to use Dark Reaper. Now, typically, some people like to use Fenrisian Gray. I think Fenrisian Gray on black gives it more of a gray tinge than a black tinge, while Dark Reaper can keep the black there. As you can see, the Dark Reaper is just a subtle highlight on the black, so it's not as massively popping out gray as Fenrisian Gray that I would normally put over black. But if you like the more pop of Fenrisian Gray over black, do feel free to use that. But I prefer Dark Reaper. But anyways, that just leaves us the windows as the last object to highlight, and we will be using Lothran Blue for that. Well, folks, it's finally time to come to an end. So I hope you enjoyed the painting scheme. Now, before we get into the glamour shots and the final look of the Airspeeder, I just want to let you know before we go into there, I did varnish the entire model and the base upon completion. Do make sure to do so. If you're painting any model, varnish seals in the paint and to ensure that there's no chipping or anything like that as well. So I do hope you enjoyed. So do make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, especially if you're a fan of these painting videos, as I will be doing more of them. But let me know down in the comments your thoughts on how I should do more of these painting videos. Your thoughts overall of the style. Should I do a different way to record? All that. I am learning this style of video right now. So with that said, let's get on to the glamour shots, and I hope you enjoyed. And there we have it, folks. The Desert Dragons Snowspeeder. I think this was a really cool model overall to paint up, and I really do enjoy this color scheme. But overall, without a doubt, I simply love it. So once again, let me know down in the comments how I can adjust this painting series, as well as anything else for the painting series, or what you think of my T-47 Airspeeder. And do once more, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you here next time on Mama Dragon's Miniatures. And may the 4th be with you.